When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. For anything on iRacing, there's just one name you need: Maconi.
With the launch of Maconi Entertainment and Maconi Competizone alongside Maconi Setup Shop, we now provide the best of the best in setups, paint schemes, coaching, broadcasting, and event organization.
With cars across all 4 license classes, we have what you need to hit the track with confidence. Grab a subscription and save money while going fast at MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions.
There is a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is partnered with more real-world tracks and companies, including Junior Motorsports, than any other group on the iRacing service.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to Maconi Entertainment, and welcome to the weekly Strength of Field race here for the Formula Fords on iRacing. Delighted to have your company here at Oulton Park tonight for one of the latest rounds of this championship. It's myself, Ron Mullins, and Howie Burrows with you on this broadcast here today at an absolutely glorious racetrack. It's old school, it's fast, it's fun, and it's slightly damp at the present moment here, Howie. We were talking before we got this broadcast up and rolling how this race was probably going to be one of the more challenging ones for these drivers, and with this sun shower we've got right now, I have a feeling that our conviction may be correct.
Every driver of this car dreads the rain. It's a real challenge of your faith in the car, your faith in the tires, and your faith in the track. This place is usually an absolutely rip-roaring circuit for these cars, but I have a feeling with 20 cars, not even 4K SOF, it's going to save some of these drivers from incidents on or off the track, but fun to watch at home at the very least.
Oh, it is going to be super fun. Gotta say, Howie, I think we should be counting our lucky stars. The fact we're here in these warm seats in the commentary booth instead of behind the wheel of one of these race cars around this damp and not very hot racetrack, it must be said. Looking at the track temperature, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, actually cooler than the ambient, and currently being marked as moderately wet is the track state on iRacing. Actually, looking at the weather radar as well, we're not going to get a full-on monsoon, so this track is just going to be wet enough whereby it will be slippery, but not dry enough whereby these drivers will finally get into some sort of groove. Now, speaking of grooves, we do have grooved tires on these race cars. One of the only cars here on the iRacing platform that does have rain compatibility, but doesn't have dedicated rain tires. These tires that we have on these race cars in this qualifying session right now, the exact same that we would have in dry conditions, which is a half and half compromise where no one really wins. You have tires that will give a lot when it comes to dry conditions, so you'll be sliding around the track, and then come time for the wet, you won't really have that water displacement, so it's basically a case of turn in, avoid the puddles, try not to die.
I've been in a live spectating for major Formula Ford races that have wet conditions, and if you're not getting soaked in the audience, you're watching drivers absolutely fight for every inch of their lives, and it's no easier on the track here. Huge field up and down as ever as we run into the end of this SoF series. I'd like to thank one more time support FILMBIL.NO for this season's coverage. Any services in Norway related to cars for any filming, including Hollywood pictures, all the way up to TV commercials. They can do it all. Check out FILMBIL.NO. You may even be able to rent out your own car. Drivers are getting their laps done on the track, but Frederick Surley showing the first of many spins in this thing. We've not seen anyone set a clean lap yet. Alexander Wesley Hazelworth is our highest I-rating driver at 6K. Andrew Merant has 2K at the bottom. We split 6 ways, and all 6 splits are going to have to deal with this weather. Even these skilled drivers are going to have a very, very hard day. Look, it's gotten murkier. It has gotten murkier as we've been speaking. The sun has gone away. It's going to be a very on-off journey, I think.
Yeah, and I think I said this when I was giving my impromptu weather guide, but yeah, it's really going to be the worst case scenario for these drivers. It's not going to be a full-on flood, but it's just going to, the track is going to remain at this state that we've got right now pretty much through the entirety of this session. The rain will be occasionally coming down, and sometimes it won't be. You can see in that small little camera shot that we had before we swapped to this one, it did look like it was raining. Here you can definitely see the rain is still sprinkling this racetrack. track. It's wet enough whereby these drivers will have to avoid the racing line at all costs and make sure you don't have some sideways moments heading through this track, which is very hilly as well. I think I made this comparison when we were talking about the race at Snetterton, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago. There's really two kinds of UK tracks. You've got the ones that are built on old RAF bases like Silverstone, like Snetterton, that are a bit more flat. Then you've got tracks like here at Oulton Park, Brands Hatch, and some of the other ones that we have here, Cadwell Park, one of the newest ones here on the iRacing platform, where you have got a whole lot of elevation change backed into this track. And as fun as that is to nail down, in conditions like this, it can be a double-edged sword. So these drivers really having to dance their way around this track in this qualifying session. And to anyone who hasn't tuned into these broadcasts before, it's an 8-minute long 2-lap session solo. So these drivers will have the racetrack all by themselves, won't have to worry about spray, at least for now. Come time for the 20-minute long race, that'll definitely be a different case. But in this qualifying session right now, they have the racetrack to themselves, and we're starting to see some of these drivers crack their knuckles.
Only a few clean laps starting to fly through, and they are on the 155s, usually a lot slower than you'd run around this track. There's so many cars, I don't really quite know where to look. It's a bit of a who's who of regulars and newcomers. Is Daniel Tufts, as ever, yet to get a lap on the board, hoping to get one down. They go all the way down to 2 minutes at the back end. Drivers really just trying, I think, to maintain themselves on the track. Getting something clean here is going to matter more than getting a super fast one. I'm fearful for very, very big wrecks. This is the D-Class series, so you do have the fast repair, but you don't really want to use it. This could just be a race of attrition and endurance. Daniel Tufts gets his first lap down. It's a P5.
And that's a pretty good lap from him, and still plenty of time to try and gain. You can see him wiggling a little bit coming out of turn number 1. Brought up a good point, Howie, talking about how this is a qualifying session where just getting a time on the board, not a fantastic time, just a time on the board is going to be super important. If you're a driver who's high up in terms of this series, and you try and push it in this qualifying session, you pick up a 1x on both laps, and then bang, there you go. You're going to be starting this race close to last. That is the worst case scenario for these drivers, and doubly so in conditions like this. This qualifying session is tricky for the reasons I just mentioned, and also this, Howie. If you're a driver who is probably tracking to be around, I don't know, 8th or 9th, as we see Mikey Pollard slide in 5th with a big slide hanging through turn number 1, so that'll just about do it for his qualifying session. But if you're a driver who's probably tracking to be in the midfield, how terrifying is that going to be, starting this race in the midfield with the rain and just the way this track is, period?
I don't even know if I want to be in the front. I mean, this could be a car that's going to be a real struggle to get off the line in these conditions. You're going to have cars piling in behind you. Yeah, from the rear might be a good idea, but then you've got a real battle to make your way up. As down to Wesley Hazelworth, just got the fastest lap of qualifying. The Arthur Obst here, trying his best to glide around a 157. Last lap wasn't clean. I don't know if he's managed to set a clean one this time. More times flying in. Here's Christian Zielke. Zielke, I'm doing my best down here. He's at one of the slowest, a 159.4, but at least it's clean. He has one more shot. Frederick Surley yet to set a lap. Neither has Quintin Derard, who I think isn't in the car today. He's decided to pack it up. Just you mentioning Brands Hatch and elevation, I just want to bring up one tiny little fact. I know we're not at Brands Hatch, but I'm not going to get another chance to say this season or next, as Brands Hatch has been excised from the schedule after 4 appearances in 2 seasons. Thank you very much. Did you know that the Brands Hatch, the whole track, is at a higher elevation than the top of the London Eye? I live in the southeast. I've been on the London Eye, and I think I'm high up when I'm at the top of that. Explains why the weather hits that place like no other. We're in Cheshire, a little bit further north. This is a track I really have to see in my life at one point. It's a thrill on all of its different layouts. Looks like we've run out of time for qualifying, and that makes our starting grid. So while the drivers grid, let's get some. What am I saying? Let's get some drivers lined up on their rows. I can't even speak. You might be best suited to start this.
Yeah, let's take a look at that starting grid. Don't worry, Howie, I've been there, done that. It's going to be Alexander Wesley Hazelworth starting this race at the front. See, I did right there. He's going to be starting from the pole after saying a 155.0. Sting Handcraft will join him on the front row. Starting right behind them in P3 will be Alexander Isted, alongside Blake Tovey in the number 9 car. Right behind those drivers on the third row, it's Mikey Pollard and Nito Braun. Right behind those racers on that third row is going to be Jacob Poletsk and James Gill. And then rounding out our top 10 of this race, we've got Daniel Tufts and Graham Rory Hunt.
10 more in the back. Christopher Cash in 11th with Leonardo Piers Nogueira in 12th. Andrew Petty sits 13th with Andrea Barlotti in 14th ahead of Christian Zieke, Andrew Morant. And then the drivers didn't set a lap. Marco Barocco, Arthur Obst, Frederick Surley, and Quintin Dirard on the back. Some I know and some I don't. We have 60 seconds until the terrifying launch of the grid. And I don't know if any driver here is happy to quite be here in these conditions.
Oh, it is going to be really, really tough, especially with that run down into turn number 1. Turn 1 here at Oulton Park, it is a track that requires a certain amount of finesse. And with these race cars in conditions like this, where the track is still being marked as moderately wet here in the iRacing platform, albeit not sure if we will be getting any more rain between now and the checkered flag of this race. That may be a factor, but it's still going to be super tough heading down into turn number 1. For drivers all up and down the grid, they were hoping for a good race. 5 seconds was the split between the top qualifier of Alexander Wesley Hazelworth and our bottom qualifier saying the slowest time of Andrew Morant. So that's pretty big. And bearing in mind, folks, this race has a 4K iRating strength of field. So we've got some quick drivers, and they're looking to have a good one. The green flag is out, and the drivers are on their way. Hazelworth trying to jump into an early lead down into turn number 1 as these drivers will still be side by side. That's going to be tempting fate if ever you've seen it. Down into turn number 1. Looks like it's going to be pretty all right for our P2 runner of Handcraft. He'll slip and toe, but that's not okay. In the back at all, a big one coming out of the turn. Someone's upside down and petering their way through the grass.
It looks to me like that's Leonardo Piers Nogueira on one end and Christian Zieke on the other. Arthur Obst also eaten a meatball flag. There have been absolute victims up and down the pack, and we'll try and get to that replay at some point. But this race stops for pretty much nobody. And away we go. Arthur came from nowhere. Alexander Wesley Hazelworth gets the launch and keeps it in P1. Sishin Handcraft sits in P2.
And Zielke there, who's upside down coming out of turn number 1, not getting off to the Zielke smooth start that he probably had in mind. That's a tough break for him as we see a big sideways snap from Hazelworth coming out of the first chicane. Those chicanes are going to be a real trouble spot for these competitors. Now Handcraft got to look to try and take advantage of that around the outside into the second chicane on the back end of the track. They're side by side heading all through the most of it, and look at that. That's going to be Hazelworth just barely hanging on as some more drivers looking to get some moves done. Mikey Pollard and Graham Rory Hunt were side by side. Rory Hunt had some sort of moment there. You can see him running wide coming out of Knickerbrook there. That's a big moment for him as someone just had a big sideways snap a little bit farther in the back.
Here's Daniel Tufts. I get on board with him, and we're pausing more upside down drivers.
Upside down.
That would be a red flag in real life. Daniel Tufts has just sent one into the stratosphere. I'm trying to work out. That was Nato Brown, who should be thankful to be alive after that one, quite frankly. I mean, I'm going to have to get you on board of that one no matter what. Here he comes. He's really just a victim in an accident there. That is just Tufts going sideways. And you hate to see it. This is like a horror scene of racing. Thankfully, we're in the virtual world. I told you it's going to be wet and wild here. That's not going to be the first or the last like that.
Yeah, not going to be the first incident of that nature that we see. That's going to be a dime a dozen in this race, I have a feeling for sure. These drivers very quick. They're in the top split for a good reason. But at the same time, there's only so much you can do when it comes to conditions like this. You can get the strongest man in the world and try and task him with picking up antimatter or chopsticks. He's not going to do it, as he... Oh, boy. That was James Gill with a big sideways snap heading through turn number 3 there. That could have ended in tears. I believe that was all through Island Bend down into Shell Oil's turn. That could have ended in disaster for the driver running in 5th. But thankfully for the driver of the lucky number 13 car, he did not get struck by a falling anvil after dipping off into the grass.
Oh, that is very nice car control to keep a handle on that, and it's car control like that that's going to see you succeed in this race. Just keeping it alive around some of the high-speed corners of this track is going to be the challenge. As good old series supporter Beatrice says in chat, this is boating around this track, lightly wet. Didn't even begin to describe it as a bit more rain came down while the drivers were gridding. Not too much rubber to put on that line, hopefully, though. Alexander Wesley Hazelworth, he's quite close to Shishin Handgraf, who was able to make that pass the P1 in the middle of all of that. Let's keep an eye on how that was done. Here's Handgraf on board. This would have been entering those first few chicanes. There's so much to catch and so much that's going on, and it's going to be impossible to catch you all. I'm hearing complaints on the mic from all sorts of drivers. That's a mistake from Hazelworth up ahead that's seized upon. Oh, I'm hearing so many complaints. Here's Quintin Dirard. And then another big one's coming soon. So one after another. Went up back on time in no time at all. Here's Quintin Dirard now running 18th after a little bit of a spin-a-roo. But that's not the biggest drama on this track because Daniel Tufts has been caught again. Frederick Surley caught up in this one as well. There's going to be regret and pain at the end of this. I recall a race from last season that was a little bit like this myself, actually. It's the same corner. The cars going side by side. And I just wonder maybe if we can just get the chopper cam on board before we finally return to live pictures. It's all happening absolutely everywhere. But Tufts and Surley already struggling in the back. The trees just let Surley just lose his grip on the inside line.
And they dance off the track right towards the end of the lap. That, I believe, was heading through Druids of turn 15. Big moment, though, regardless, for those racers who are going to be looking to turn over a different leaf when they leave this racetrack here. Gotta say, just about everyone who has taken the start is still out there. Credit where credit is due. I mean, hey, in conditions like this, with the amount of mistakes we've seen from this field in the first 5.5 minutes, I would not be shocked at all if a driver like Christian Zielke will be able to jump his way, maybe inside of the top 15 if he can pick up a couple of miracles every now and then. Wouldn't be placing money on it if I was a betting man. I probably won't have a house. But we've got a still close fight at the front. Handgraf has not been able to pull the gap he probably had in mind from Alexander Wesley Hazelworth. About 0.6 of a second between these two coming out of Lodge Corner through Deer Leap of turn number 17, the final lap around this racetrack. And as we saw some moments heading off through the two chicanes of Brins and Hislops, I gotta ask you this here, Howie. Which of these chicanes do you think is going to be the more challenging for these drivers? Is it going to be the rather abrupt Brins, or is it going to be the more pronounced Hislops?
I find Hislops to be a bigger challenge when it comes, just because of the giant, like cinder blocks that are basically put in your way as you run. Here's James Gill, little bit of contact with Andrew Petty here as the sun starts to come out. The rain has definitely stopped, but there's a lot of water to clear. Jacob Pluzek also in this battle in the orange car. In between them, that's Petty off the track by a lot. Pluzek barely holding it together. Gill's going to get the best of them for now. I see gravel kicked up on exit. But yeah, if we hop onto the onboard as we just approach both of these chicanes, they both need to be taken a bit differently. I don't enjoy either in the downpour. Let me put on that. But this one flows just a little bit more, although I'm very partial to the track layout where you get to fly all the way down the straight. The second one, you get a much longer run up. You get some slightly misleading and confusing brake barriers, and then you got to make sure not to spin yourself on the two curves. It's a real hard stop. That one is a real struggle around here.
Now, I gotta say, I'm with you when it comes to that part of the racetrack. It's nice to have that long flat-out blast, but having those chicanes, maybe I'm just a little bit odd. I kind of like the challenges of something like that, especially in conditions like these. And these Formula Fords, they're a tough car. Ever since they got reworked for the season of iRacing, the way they've driven is quite a bit different than how it has been the past couple of years. I've personally struggled to get adjusted to it myself, but again, very good reason why I'm behind the microphone instead behind the wheel, as here's two drivers going side by side. That's Petty getting a move done on Pulzek, heading down into the second to last corner of Lodge Bend, as here's another overtake potentially going on involving Christopher Cash and Artur Alpst. My apologies, my German ancestors are rolling in their graves right now as we see some close quarters racing all throughout this field. And even at the front, Handegraaff has not pulled that gap that he had in mind. Oh, as you can see, running way wide. That's Alpst off into the grass.
Everybody just hanging on for their dear lives. My client's been reporting a meatball for the last 5 laps. That's Petty going wide. Now, another thing worth noting, we've seen a few DQs in races on this channel already, but let me warn you well in advance, I think. The DQs are going to hit some of these drivers very, very hard by the end of this race. We're only anticipating about 6 more laps of this, but we've been seeing drivers go off the track absolutely everywhere. Wesley Hazelworth not at all done with Sijin Handgraf. They're both passing a lapped car here. It was coordinating the pass down this straight, but we could see a battle for the lead any time soon between these two. Hazelworth is the faster driver on the terms of pure lap pace, if he can get the pass done, but it's a battle between survival and getting around the other car in conditions like these.
Yeah, you got the yin and the yang. It's good to be able to get some spots, but at the same time, if you just throw it off on the wall trying to get some moves done, does it really matter at the end of the day? As you can see, Handgraf really having to dance that car around the track, heading off through the end of this lap. That was coming out of Druids. You can see the drop away that track has. You still have a bit of a turn to contend with on corner exit. Super tough to try and nail down. Here's the driver's had a roller coaster ride of a race up to this point, has been involved in 2 incidents up to this point in time, hoping not to have his third in the second half. This is Daniel Tufts running in P12 at the moment in the number 6 car. Very quick driver in these Formula 4s, but yeah, that was a big, another sideways snap heading down into Druids. Thankfully, though, his moments have gone on entering Druids, not exiting it. Now, in my luck, he's probably going to crash and flip out there in about 3 laps time. But he's just got a move done on the rather slow Marco Barocco. That was coming out of, coming down into the final row corner around this racetrack. As Hazelworth and Handgraf are starting to battle at the front. They're side by side right towards the start of this lap, battling tooth and nail, and you can see that both of them sideways heading off through Island Bend to turn number 4. Now it's going to be Handgraf holding on to that inside line down into turn at number 1. Oh, contact being made. That was through turn number 5. My apologies. What am I saying? That's Handgraf holding on to that spot at least for now.
Tight battling between the two. They're going to keep it up down to the rest. Artur Obst eating a DQ, I believe. That is on the back of not serving a meatball flag. It's been around 6 laps. I wondered if it was bugging out my end, but no, he's just been hit by the anvil, and I'd imagine that would have happened when he crossed the line. And you do have to serve a repairs required, even if the car feels fine. It's just one of those experiences in iRacing. Here's a chopper cam of the battle one more time. Good run there from Hazelworth down the straight. These two able to race close and still keep it respectful in the rain. It's not really a lack of respect in the rain. It's more like a lack of grip and control. Nice, well-controlled flick on the outside, and not quite contact on my end, but that was awfully close. One more incident just kicked off, I'm afraid to say. Daniel Tufts did it again, and it's probably because you said something.
Oh, it absolutely is. You can see him getting oh so close. Yep, that right there, Howie, you said it earlier on. Those tire bundles on the inside of both of the chicanes around this racetrack, they were made out of the matter of white dwarf stars, and I think we just saw Daniel Tufts get struck by one. Let's see. Yep, there we go. The smallest of touches, the smallest bits of contact, and that breaks off the wheel, and that's going to be Daniel Tufts' day done, essentially.
Few more incidents up and down the field. It's worth catching all these. Here's Pollard catches the grass, and that's one too many. I have a feeling that this race is going to lead to some very angry forum posts. Now, I've been a part sometimes of the very angry forum posts, but I could just, I don't try to stay out of the matters of rain, yeah? I don't drive it enough. It's not quite my, I just can tell you right now that people are going to be a little bit upset. There's another one there from Frederick Surley. Tufts has repaired the car. A lot of drivers have had to make those pit stop runs, so I wouldn't really count anyone completely out here, and the fast repair helps in a race that strings out this much, but Tufts on the lead lap sitting in 15th, Surley in 16th.
You know, as I think of what may go on with the forum discussions after this, I get bad flashbacks to when I was on the Bathurst 12 show and the amount of comments that I saw in the iRacing YouTube chat talking about it. Oh, another special event with rain iRacing. Come on, don't be stupid. I was like, just enjoy the racing. Granted, it's not great if you're behind the wheel, but from our perspective in the booth, it is absolutely marvelous. As here's a good fight. That's Andrew Petty trying to make something work around the outside, now switching to the inside line off into the Druids section. That's him and Blake Tovey heading off tooth and nail, and that's going to be Petty jumping his way up into fourth. A pretty nice move, especially so in conditions like this. That would be impressive in the dry. It's doubly impressive in the rain.
I mean, I will tell you that these cars in the rain are a special form of hell that you simply can't imagine until you're there. By the way, my shout out to Andrew Petty. First time I've seen him on the stream. That is the Nissan Formula E design, and it's a car I absolutely love, probably due to win and dominate this season. I got the privilege of being at the Monaco E-Prix, and it was a bigger thrill than Formula One's, let me tell you that. Lots of passing around the harbour. Here's Leonardo Nogueira getting past Marco Barocco for the P12. Quintin Durad requires repairs. Unfortunately, that requires us also showing it. That's just part of the contract, I'm afraid. He's had a hard race. He's had a few more spins, and that's one wall shock in and out of the race. Hearing more complaints from drivers. I'm not seeing them quite coming together, but I have the voice chat in my ear. I don't always know who it's coming from, but I can tell you there is discord on this track.
Yep, there are definitely some drivers having some chats during this, and based off the amount of drivers who have really been feeling the wrath of this place, I can't necessarily say I blame them, as here's Daniel Tufts has rejoined the race, and it doesn't look like that car is anywhere near as screwed up as it was at one point in time. Still running a little bit farther towards the back, and don't tell me he's had another moment. No, it's actually a moment for Jacob Polzek. Let's take a look at
this
here,
is a nice
coming
pass
out of turn number 3. It's actually an overtake. Yeah, here we go. Let's have a look at down that small little flat out blast off into turn 4. Looks like a rather textbook maneuver. That's because it is. Oh, no.
That's what it was.
Yep.
I had no idea that was coming. I did not know that was coming.
In your defense, Howie, you did say that it was a good overtake, which it was for a few moments. Then it was a crash.
I mean, I tried not to tee him up like that. Let me put it like that. I tried not to tee him up like that. And this is my call out to Jeff Maconi, who runs the channel, is if you get a lot of dislikes on this video, it's probably just people really upset about the race. I covered a wet race at Donington Park last season, which had a big one that wiped out half the field on the first lap. And many of the dislikes that came my way were not as a result of the broadcast, which was largely to the standard of previous weeks. It was drivers very upset about the race they had just been through with DQ sliding left, right, and centre. Looking at about 3 to go on lap 9 out of 11. This time, Handgraf has run away. It's 1.7 seconds.
If you want to hear a story about very upset drivers, I think, Howie, before we got together to do these FF shows, during some of the other shows that we've done together here at Maconi Entertainment, I shared this story, as I'm going to hold off on that here in a couple of moments, as Marco Baracco maybe going to try and eye up a move to jump his way up in front of Leonardo Pires Nogueira there. And look at that. That's side-by-side racing out of turn number 3 between the two of them. Barocca just having a fantastic exit and is able to get that move done down into turn number 4. Now, let's not go the way of the two drivers we saw crash a couple of moments ago. It looks like they make their way through turn number 4 down into 5 rather cleanly, and we're going to take a look at a replay.
Tell me what just happened while we see Frederick Surly toe to the pit. Tell me what happened. I reminder of the story.
Yeah, so I was going to share the story of the one time where I was doing a broadcast with on another network, as Johnny Carson would say, of a different Formula Ford series. It's a Formula Ford League, which narrows it down quite a lot. But it was a 40-minute long race at Cadwell Park in the rain. And I think we had 5 drivers cross the line in that race. Now, for context, I have broadcasted that league for you. Okay, that's Alexander Wesley Haysworth with a Code Brown moment coming ahead turn number 1. But bearing in mind, I broadcasted that Formula Ford league that I've mentioned for about 2 years up to this point. I have never seen drivers just in a race like that before.
Well, the first race of this season was Wet Cadwell Park, and it ended about the same way. Let me tell you that. There was just a matter of who survived to the top. Graham Gory Hunt almost making the pass here for P10. Andrew Morant, lowest number in the lobby, has been able to survive his way up to the halfway point. That's so much. That is a bucket load of IR rating on the line, of course, because being an SoF series, your ratings get updated after today, and more likely, you lose all of the safety rating you've just spent weeks building up. And I'm not going to name names, but there are some drivers here that were looking for their D promotion who came to the wrong place. They should have done F4, which is something you should never usually say. And then there are some drivers who are hanging on the edge of their A license and just sort of like probably didn't need this race to tip them over the edge.
Coming to a rain-soaked Formula Ford race at Okayama to try and get some safety rating is like searching for moral wisdom on a trip to Wilmington, Delaware. You will not be able to find such thing in such a trip, as here's a fight maybe going to flare up with Graham Rory Hunt. He's looking around the back of Andrew Morant, and this is some close-quarter stuff between these two. Graham Rory Hunt maybe going to try and size up an overtake. Going to just keep it going on the road, even down these flat-out blasts around this racetrack, which they are plentiful, but straight-line blasts are few and far between. Really, that's the only one around this track, with the exception of that and the run between 3 and 4. Even then, these cars are skating around like there's no tomorrow. Graham Rory Hunt got to look to try and find any way, maybe seize the opportunity if Andrew Morant has had some sort of moment in the number 20 cars. We're going to take a look at a replay of a driver having a moment. This is Leonardo Pires Nogueira, and that is a spin through turn number 3, loops it on a puddle, and unfortunately there, the driver of the number 7 car going to drop down into double that in P14. As here's a moment following Christopher Cash in the number 3 car, that cotton candy chrome car, as I like to call it, with a sideways snap through Druids, and keeps it on the road. And thankfully there wasn't a pack of cars running up right behind. If that was on lap 1, we probably would have seen a third car flip in this race. As here's Andrea Bellotti with a moment through the same section of the racetrack. Slight kiss of the inside barrier, nothing more, nothing less there. As here's another moment involving Marco Barocco. Lots of these drivers having trouble through Druids, as here's that spin form in the 8 car. Going backwards on exit, the elevation change is what makes that particularly a pain in the butt for these racers. But one driver who the only real pain that he had was a slight thorn in the side from Alexander Wesley Hazelwood in the early stages, but ever since then, Sten Handgraf has been able to shake off that challenge from him like a bad case of the fleas, and the driver of the number 5 car heading his way down into Druids for the last time in this race with a 9/10 of a second gap between himself and Hazelworth. Looks like it will just be his for the taking unless he has some sort of moment, which isn't impossible, down into Lodge Corner at the end of this race. Looks like he kisses that apex beautifully. He can take it easy. He has that gap. He has that cushion. And it's going to be Sten Handgraf in the number 5 car, grabbing the checkered flag here at Oulton Park.
I wonder who would like to speak to us at the end of that one. Everyone who made it to the end deserves every point that comes their way in these championship standings. They really, really do. Alexander Istad and Andrew Petty having pretty clean races that we didn't get to see too much more of for 3 and 4. Jacob Bluzak crosses the line in front of Blake Toby and Mikey Pollard. We'll go through the rest of the field in due time, but just a celebration for everybody who was able to make it home on lead lap. 15 of our drivers getting back here on the lead lap, and a few more victims in the way. I'm looking forward to reading some of the complaints after the fact, but you know what? That's only because I have the cruel, masochistic tendency. Oh, here comes Graham Rory Hunt over the line. He wants to make it a three-wide track race. Not quite going to happen. Almost a legendary wreck. Yeah, like, I get to laugh because I don't have to drive. Do you want to know a story? I get the thumbnails for these videos by heading out onto the track, onto these track conditions, and I looped it before we hit the back straight. So I can confirm it's hard out here. Well, we go for the results. We're going to play a slow motion replay of some of our most ridiculous incidents, I think. Unfortunately for everybody, they're a required part of the action. You can feel free to read through some of the driver results as we run through this sort of celebration of excess.
You know what, as we see these drivers funnel their way off into turn number 1 at the very start of this race in super duper slow motion, I'm going to share 2 stories of some of the dumbest crashes I've had in my iRacing career. One time I flipped going about 30 miles an hour in a Super Formula Lights car, hit a wall coming out of the pits, and ended up turning it upside down. Don't ask me how I did that. I'm not even sure if iRacing knows how that happened. And then the second time was I was running Formula 3 cars at Charlotte, not on the Roval, on the oval with some AI, and I had spun, and an AI came, clipped my rear wing that had broken off of my race car, snapped the rear wheel off the car, and then hit me sideways with so much force that actually crashed my simulator. So, hey, Howie, I have absolutely no room to judge when it comes to all of that. But one driver who's going to be feeling real good about how his day went is going to be Sten Handgroff. He is your winner at the end of this race, finishing 7.5 tenths of a second in front of your P2 finisher of Alexander Wesley. Hazelworth finishing in P2. Alexander Istad rounds out your podium in third. Finishing in fourth will be Andrew Petty in P5. It will be Jacob Polzak in sixth. It will be Blake Talvey in front of Mikey Pollard in P7. Christopher Cash in eighth. Andrea Ballotti in ninth. Andrew Morant will round out your top 10. And then looking through the rest of the drivers who I've classified in this race, some of them, it should be known, definitely got struck by falling anvils. It continues on with Graham Rory Hunt in P11. James Gill in P12, whose pink Strawberry Dreams Monster Energy race car. We are not sponsored here at Maconi Entertainment, although if Monster decides to send us some money, I don't think we would necessarily turn that down. But that scheme, a big fan of that was my friend Kate, who I had to take a screenshot of that car and send midway through this broadcast. Marco Barocca will finish in P13 with Leonardo Pires Noguera, I'll get his name pronunciation correct at some point, finishes in 14th. Nito Braun will be the last of the cars to cross that checkered flag on the lead lap. Christian Zielke, after starting this race upside down, is classed in P16. Frederick Sorley is in P17. Daniel Tufts is in 18th, the last of the cars to finish this race. Artur Alps, I believe, picked up a disqualification with Quintin Durad having a spin coming out of turn number 3 midway through this race. So those are your results at the end of it all, and Howie, it looks like we have Alexander Istad, our P3 finisher at the end of this race, looking to have a chat with us.
Alexander Istad, you might be the only person after that race that wants to talk to us. I heard a lot of discord in my own time. Tell me how that went for you. We didn't get to see much of you, but that was probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's probably because it didn't happen very much. It was really hard work with the conditions drying up, and I saw the guys in front setting lap times faster and faster. And I'm happy with third place in that field in these conditions, and I was just focusing on keeping the gap to Andrew Petty that I saw was closing in behind.
Well, did you hear much of what happened on the rest of the grid? How do you think the rest of the drivers feel after such a day on the track? There's always one per season. You always got to have one.
I think I'm the only one that was happy to see the rain at the start. But it looks like it was chaotic back in the field, and it usually is when it gets wet like this. It's really hard to see what's happening in front when you're close up in a pack.
Well, you got a great result, and one I'm sure you're going to be happy with for some time. Do you have any other thank yous or shout outs?
No, I'm just happy to get to the finish line, and I'm off to Trexton, and we see how it goes there.
Well, hope to see you around here in future races or even seasons down the line. It's always good to have you around.
Yeah, thank you.
The season wraps down to a close. I'm sort of choosing to pass on the points quite this week because I want to double check and verify they're right, because as we change the time slot stuff, I want to make sure the numbers are correct before I conclusively say things. We approach our final 3 weeks, 11, 12, 13. So no, 12 weeks. 13 isn't worth. First, our final 2 weeks, and next week we're at Thruxton, which is a track like none other. It's Thruxton and Donington back to back. It's an incredible end to the season.
Yeah, and you really get two completely different racetracks in it. Donington going to be a bit tighter, a bit twistier, a bit more technical. Thruxton on the other end, you definitely have some spots where you do have to wheel that car around, but it's going to be a draft fest there. I mean, we flash back to that race at Silverstone 1 week ago, which was an absolute barn burner, but that race at Thruxton in 1 week's time is going to be absolutely fantastic, and hopefully all of you tuning into this broadcast here on Maconi Entertainment tonight will be able to tune in 1 week's time for the weekly action here from the series for the Formula Fords. It's been a fantastic season up to this point. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in the booth, and hey, we still got 2 more weeks before we wrap up season 2 of 2025. But for myself, Ron Mullins, and Howie Burrows joining me in the commentary booth and also working on the cameras and the graphics and the virtual production hauler, I say thank you also very much for watching this broadcast on Maconi Entertainment tonight, and we hope to see you